Stories from Foster Care is brought to you by the Irish Foster Care Association in association with the Department of Children, Equality, Disability, Integration and Youth.
This episode of the podcast contains references to self-harm and suicide. Listener discretion is advised.
I do think I was very lucky, with the foster parents that I had, and my foster mother, she was very, she was very easy to talk to. She was good, kind-hearted. I knew I could go and talk to her, if I needed to. And my dad as well, they were really nice people.
I'm Niamh Barrett, and on this episode of Stories from Foster Care, I'm talking to Sadie Harpur. Sadie is an author who has just brought out her book, The Hidden World of a Foster Girl, co-written with Jackie Hayden, which tells all about her life in foster care, as a foster carer herself. It's an amazingly honest and thoughtful and moving book. And Sadie, it's great to have you in with us today.
Hi Niamh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having us.
Really good to meet you after reading about your life. And Sadie, if it's okay to start at the beginning of your life, because you were taken into foster care as an infant. How old were you and your twin sister when you came into care?
We were 9 months old. My birth mum had 5 kids, and then she became pregnant with me. Now, she didn't know she was having twins, and we were 6 months, 3 months premature. And Kizzy had a heart problem, so she had to stay in hospital. Now, as far as I know, I think I stayed in hospital because I was premature for a few weeks. But then we got separated. I went to live with my birth parents, and Kiz stayed in the hospital. So I'd say that was tough as well because we were twins, so we were separated from each other. So then when I went back to my birth family, my birth dad was a lorry driver at the time, and my mum was at home with the 5 kids. And I think me probably made it 6 actually. But they'd gone through a lot as well because their first baby had died. I think it was a stillbirth. I wouldn't know really a lot about it, but I know they'd gone through a lot And then the conditions where we were living was a 3-bedroom flat, and you can only imagine 6 kids, and then Kizzy was to come home. And I know my mum and dad were going through a lot. So basically my mum wasn't well, so me and my other sister, she would have been about a year older than me, I think. The two of us, we went to a children's home for a couple of weeks, and then I went back to my birth parents. And then I got reunited with Kizzy. Then she left the hospital and she came to live with my birth family. And then things got tricky again then, and I think the social workers did come in and try and offer support and help to the family. But my nanny was a great support to the family. She had 17 children.
Wow.
Yeah, so she apparently was an amazing lady, and she helped out a lot, and sadly she passed away suddenly.
Oh.
Yeah, so I think that was, that was really, really tough on my birth mother, and so.
Yeah, that was a great potential support, then that was taken away. Yeah.
So then the placement, or then we all, anyway, the social workers I think got involved, and they decided that we'd be better off all going into care. So as far as I know, we went to the nuns again. And then my foster parents, they had already fostered a boy called Gary. He was in the children's home in Stillorgan, and they had fostered Gary, but they also had 2 children of their own. And it was coming up to Christmas, and they got a phone call to say that there was 2 twins, premature twins, that were looking just for a short foster placement. Only probably be a few weeks until they found us somewhere to go. So my mum and dad were like, oh, right, sure, look, we'll just take them. And I think the fact that it was coming up to Christmas as well, so they just said, sure, look, we'll just take them, it's just a few days. So myself and Kiz, we moved in with them, supposed to be for a few weeks. But now when we first came in, they didn't have anywhere for us to stay. So myself and Kiz, we both stayed in a drawer. My dad pulled out the drawer, and because we were so small, they'd nowhere for us to sleep. So we slept in a drawer for the first few weeks. And all our friends always say to us, get back into your drawer.
Yeah, I think that was a common thing. I was put in a drawer as well for some time. So that's when you began to live with your foster family.
Yeah.
And in the book you talk a bit about how you became aware that so many moves in your early infancy might have had an effect on you.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because we're only really finding out about that now through research, the effect on babies and small children of all the moves, but that was something that you had lived. Can you say a bit about that?
Yeah. So when I came to Mum and Dad, like, I was different because if bear in mind, Kizzy spent time in a hospital and we were actually very different, where I seemed to be very withdrawal and Kizzy was a lot more active. And my mum and dad told me that they had to feed me under a blanket. So they were saying that because I was so withdrawal, I didn't want anyone to touch me or any contact with anyone. So I used to just kind of isolate myself from everyone. And this was only at like 9 months. And Mum said one day I was playing with a tea towel and I used to just put it over my head. And they were saying that social workers had said to my parents, you know, just feed her underneath the blanket. You know, she doesn't like touch. So, you know, just leave her be. But they both kind of felt, oh God, no, can't do that. So they kind of took turns trying to just give me a little bit of contact, and they just started feeding me under the blanket, and then eventually I was able to take it off. But it seemed to have really affected me where I wasn't really responding. So they were talking about, professionals were talking about, oh, maybe she's deaf, maybe she's blind, maybe she's handicapped. And my foster mum kept saying, no, I don't think so, no, you know, I think it's just, you know, withdrawal. And my mum actually said she thinks that somewhere, like, I must have just shut down and just said, I don't trust people, I don't trust my environment, I just, leave me alone. I just shut down. And she used to take me to see professionals, and she was telling me that there was this man, and he was saying to Mum, like, she's just not meeting the milestones, and she's not doing this, she's not doing that, and you're in denial. And my mum was like, at home she would stand up. Mum said I'd stand up on the chair at home and I'd stir the pot with her, and just hand over hand, and he wouldn't hear any of this. And Mum said, can she just sit on my lap, because she's just, obviously I didn't trust him, so I wasn't going to perform in front of him. Yeah. And he just, no, you know. And she was told that she was in denial, and she had social workers ringing her and saying, you know, this child is handicapped and you're not helping her. And then that doctor had gone on holidays, and there was a temp in for the next examination, and Mum just explained, yeah, no problem. So I sat on my mum's lap and I started building the blocks and I started doing the stuff that I was supposed to do, but it was just trust. Yeah. You know, but I know it's different, I suppose, because you're talking like 80s back then, like, but it's different times, isn't it? Yeah, it was different, and there was different understandings. But yet your mother, because you call your foster mother your mum, yeah, she knew what to do, and she knew what you were capable of, and that you weren't fitting those descriptions that they were putting on you. So you had all those moves in your early infancy. My parents didn't know. My foster parents didn't know about the moves. They were told very little information, and they were saying, like, maybe like they didn't say too much because they wanted to place us, and then you know, so they probably were kind of careful what they said. But then we were to be moved again, and this was at around, I'd say we would have been over 1, I'd say, but there was talk of moving us again. We were to go to live with our birth siblings, so they all went together. Then now some of them, they had gone into children's homes and things like that, but then they were all reunited together in one house with another foster family, so me and Kiz were to go with them. But my mum had to kind of fight for us to stay, because she felt like, look, Sadie's definitely coming on now, and you know, she really, another move would just be so critical for her. But at first the move was going ahead, but eventually my mum was able to talk them around. She sounds like she was a very strong advocate. Yeah, very strong. And you'd want to be it back in those days, because you'd be getting so much coming at you. Oh yeah. Like the labels of handicapped and so on.
So she must be a strong person.
Oh, she certainly is, because she definitely said, and Dad would say today as well, like, you know, you could have ended up in an institution. You know, you could have. And my mum felt at times it could have gone like that.
Yeah. And she was determined not to let that happen, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So you started to settle in with them, and they had other children there as well?
Yeah.
Tell me about them.
Yeah, so I have an older sister. I'd say she would have been back then, probably she could have been about 7 or 8 when we came. And my brother too, he was probably around 6 or 7. But I know it was huge for them, like when we came along, because they were like completely pushed out, you know. And so it was kind of all about the twins and all about Gary. And I know it was tough for them, like, you know, because Mum had to bring, especially me and Gary, to appointments and stuff like that. But if, you know, they could have turned around at any point and said they didn't want us, and they didn't. So I really respect the fact that they didn't, you know. And I know my foster parents did actually say it to my foster siblings, like, you know, are you okay with this? And they said, yeah. So
yeah, they included them in the decision making. Yeah, so important. Tell me about Gary.
Yeah, oh, stop. It makes me laugh when I think of Gary. Like, he was just, he was like a pocket rocket. So Gary, Mum and Dad fostered Gary from a children's home. It's Madonna House Children's Home in Stillorgan. And I suppose, you know, years to come now, I think a lot of people know, you know, there was a lot of abuse and that happened in that children's home. And back then, you know, in the 80s, they didn't have like policies around abuse and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, it was a very different world then. Yeah, so he went through some very tough experiences as well.
Yeah, he really did.
Including abuse, yeah.
Yeah, and then when he went to Mum and Dad, you know, they were told, like, he was able to verbalise it and tell Mum and Dad, you know, stuff that happened. But his behaviour, you know, was challenging, and it was difficult. And I know Gary's social worker at the time, he felt that she didn't like him and she didn't listen to him. And my mum found her very, very difficult as well to deal with, where she wasn't child-centred. She wasn't really listening to him. It was just ticking boxes and stuff. And emotionally, you know, Gary was crying out, you know, and it was just very, very sad. But one particular day, I was sitting down playing with my trains on the ground, and I had glasses on at the time. And Gary ran in like a lunatic, Mum said, ran in the door. Whatever had happened, he was in really bad form. I think something had happened in school. And he pushed the door, and I fell over. And then Kizzy started flying in, she started flying in, and whatever way he went to push her, and my mum put her hand out to catch him. But she kind of gave him like a bit of a slap. But she said she didn't mean to do it, like. So straight away, she's thinking, oh God, you know. So she rang Gary's social worker straight away and said, look, this is what's after happening. I did give him a bit of a slap, but I didn't mean to. It was just, I was trying to help the girls, you know, and it was just the way the situation happened. And she's like, oh, I'm going to have to report you now to child protection. And, you know, and my mum was like, you know, it was a complete accident. Like, I didn't just go out to hit him. I was just trying to, like, stop the situation. So there was a massive thing around that. So I think at that stage, so I was about 7 at the time, now that I think of it. But there was a lot of professionals, obviously, were brought in, and there was a massive big thing about it. And Mum was saying that she felt like all the professionals were on her side, you know, the teachers, the psychologists, everyone was on her side. And then all of a sudden they weren't. And me and Kizzy and my foster sister, we were all playing in the sitting room one day, and the police came up the drive with the social worker. There was a ring on the door, and we just heard all the commotion and the shouting, and Gary was crying and screaming, and my mum and dad were pleading. And I remember, like, the neighbours and all came out, and my foster sister at the time, she picked me up, and then another neighbour picked Kizzy up. We had this like small wall, and they just put us in next door, and we were like, where is Gary, what's happening? And we saw them take Gary away. You know,
that must have been very difficult.
Yeah, it was. like when we were like 7 at the time. And I suppose we'd already gone through our own traumatic experience, because when we were babies, like even though we were only 9 months old, like I'd say that still stays with you, because like that police would have came in again and we would have been removed. So, and I do often wonder, Niamh, like that wasn't planned, you know, there was no need for that, because he wasn't in any danger, like, and it wasn't planned out. There was no warning. If they were going to remove him, they could have at least spoke with Mum. They could have prepared Gary, you know. I know my foster mum was just distraught over it, and my dad too, because, you know, she tried to do the right thing. She didn't. Like Gary, like at the time, I don't know, because I'd say Gary was all over the place. He could have been saying like, oh yeah, she hit me. I don't know. But talking to Gary after about it, like he was saying no, like he was saying no, like, you know, she only tapped me, like,
Yeah.
you know.
And also she was reaching out to the social worker to say, this just happened, I want to inform you, that's been in partnership, isn't it? That's been transparent, but it doesn't always play out like that.
No, but it definitely put a black mark on her fostering file.
Yeah, it's such a shame.
And then Mum and Dad weren't told where Gary was, so Gary was missing out of our life, say, for about a year and a half. And my mum said one day there was a phone call. Gary rang and he was like, Mom, I'm here in this home. I can't talk, I'm after sneaking in. This is where I am. And so Mum was like, but Mum rang the social worker. She was like, why is he in, like, you know, like they were like proper residential for like children with like serious issues. And my mum was just like, why would he even be in a place like that? So anyway, we were allowed to come and see him, but Gary was getting abused in these places, and he was getting like, he had scars on him, like he was getting bet around, you know. And it was awful, like just the abuse that he went through. And now he was allowed, the social worker, she wasn't going to admit that she made a mistake. She eventually did let Gary come to live with us, because one day Dad was taking out the bins one day, and where we were living there was a ditch, and my dad seen this little head pop up. He was like, who was that? So, and he looked closer and it was Gary. Yeah, so they rang the social workers and they agreed Gary could come and stay. But I think a lot of trauma, a lot of stuff had happened, and it all started to unfold. And I always remember Mum saying to him, you need to write this down, Gary. You need to write it down. You need to write all this down. And I remember Gary saying to Mum, like, that one of the abusers, like Gary said to him that I'm going to tell. And he said, go ahead, tell. He said, because we all back each other up.
Gosh. Oh, that's dreadful.
He didn't tell.
No, not when he realised that nothing would happen. What kind of a relationship did you have with your birth family during this time? If it's okay to ask you about that.
Yeah, that's all right. So basically, I wouldn't have seen a lot of my birth mother. I do remember a visit. Apparently, Mum and Dad said that she came out to visit us with her sister when we were very, very young, but I wouldn't have remembered that. And then when we were probably, I don't know what age we would have been, like maybe 4 or 5, we went to meet her in a HSC building. And all I can remember is a big table, toys, but I'd say I was eye level, so I was looking down and I could see smoke and high heels, and I can remember like the sound of the high heels. But I remember like the anxious side of it, and I can remember steps as well. So then I didn't see my birth mother then till I was probably about 12. Now my foster dad used to come out when he could. He kept in contact with us, and birthdays and presents, like he was always...
Your birth dad, was it?
Yeah, and he'd send like, he'd come, be like Santa. He'd come with like big black sacks of presents and that, like, and I really appreciate that too, because when I think back, like, God, he wouldn't have had like a lot of money, like, and that you're talking 7 kids, you know. But my first proper time meeting my birth mother, I would have been, I'd say I was around 12, and my birth dad had rang my foster parents to say that my granddad had passed away, on my mum's side. And we had kept in contact with our brothers and sisters, our siblings over the years. Like, we would have had a bit of family access. But obviously those HSA buildings, they just didn't feel right. So we used to go and maybe visit them in their house, or they'd come to visit us. So we contacted them, and they were going to go to the funeral as well. So the day of the funeral, it was on the north side. And me and Kiz, like, we were like, to my older brother, like, we were like saying to him, like, oh, is that her? Is that her? Is that her? We just couldn't wait to see what she looked like. And like, I remember like getting buses into school, and I'd be chatting to people, and I always wondered, like, you'd make a connection. Oh God, is that her? Or, you always wondered, like, and you're sort of relying on a photograph. And there was one photograph that I had seen her, like, but still, she didn't look anything like the photograph, actually, when I think back at it. But anyway, at the funeral, I was so nervous, and me and Kizzy, like, we were laughing. And I remember, like, people looking at us, like, kind of going, geez, don't be so disrespectful, But I felt like shouting out, I'm going to meet my birth mum, So at the end of it, we walked up, and my dad was a small man. And I remember I was walking behind him. And all of a sudden, like, he just moved out of the way. And I just saw this lady, like, sitting down. And he said, this is your daughter. And it was kind of, wow. Because she had no warning. So it was just like, there you go, there's your daughter. And we were all lined up. And she was just, like, so shocked. Like, you could see nearly the blood draining out of her face.
Yeah.
There was no words. She didn't even know what to say. It was terrible. And none of us knew what to do. And then obviously she went outside, and it was really difficult. And then she was very upset, very emotional. And I remember someone saying, like, go over and give your ma a hug. And I remember, like, freezing. I was just like, oh God, And then I remember someone saying to me, I think it was my foster mum or someone saying, like, no, you don't have to do that. But I couldn't bring myself to move.
Yeah.
I just went into, like, some kind of shock.
Yeah.
And then when I did go over, it was very much like, I'm really sorry, I love you, and all of that, like, And I really saw, a real vulnerable person in front of me, and it was really, really tough, because you don't know what to say. And I knew she loved us. Like, you could see it, you could see the love, you could see, like, God. But it wasn't, it was, it was hard. And, like, we were all invited back to our birth family's house, and we went back, and very overwhelming. I think we met it, like, all the family, and, and they're like, oh, we hadn't seen you in years, and telling you the stories. And I think it's a lot for a 12-year-old to take in.
Huge amount.
Huge, yeah. And I think the accents was a big thing for me and Kizzy, I think, because we were, on the posh side, the south side of Dublin, So, and then they were north side, so I think it was kind of like, whoa, we're so different.
Yeah.
And then you're thinking, oh God, maybe they won't like us, or maybe they won't love us, or what, it's just all them emotions. But then going home then and not really having support,
Not having support with the experience of having just met your birth mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just, we were sort of just left, where I feel like we should have been offered, the social workers, like, we should have been offered more emotional support. We should have been, they could have came around and asked how we were doing, or, you were just supposed to be a normal child. And I remember that, having to go into school and just be normal. Just try to, whatever normal is, just to fit into society, fit into the school society, trying to fit into your foster family, trying to fit into your birth family. You're just at limbo because you don't know where you fit.
In the book, you describe that experience, I think, as a triple whammy.
Massive.
Yeah.
I just emotionally didn't know how to cope.
Yeah.
I tried, and I was always, like, trying to be the tough one, because I felt like Kizzy was, like, so, in my eyes, she came across so weak. Like, she came across so, like, emotional. She'd cry at anything. And I was jealous of that too, because I couldn't do that.
Yeah, you were putting on a tough exterior to cope. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Dr. Danielle Douglas. You're listening to the Stories from Foster Care podcast. Make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
And so that experience of the triple whammy is like how you're describing of trying to fit in everywhere and feeling like you don't fit in anywhere.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was just, it's like all these different, that's why it's called The Hidden World of a Foster Girl, because I feel like we have so many worlds that we're trying to fit into, you know, because you have, like, you're trying to find where you do fit in and who you are, and it's really hard. And I think as well, like, I found, like, with my foster family, there was times I just didn't feel like part of their family, even though I know, like, they loved us, I know they tried, but they were so different in so many ways. Like, my foster mum was from Galway, my foster dad was from Belfast, completely different cultures to my family. Even my mum was very, like, ever so posh, you know, the way she spoke, you know, and, like, me and Kizzy, like, do you know the funny thing, I think, with the Dublin blood running through our genes, like, you know, it's mad where, like, we couldn't be that posh person, like, we couldn't, like, every now and again, like, these words would just come out, and it was so funny. Me and kids, like, would be in stitches half the time because these big accents would just come out sometimes. And I remember my mum would be like, you know, finish your words correctly, you know, speak properly, you know. And we'd be like, well, whatever, you know. But she was so different, like, your knives and forks, when we'd be eating our dinner, like, she'd be like, you know, the way you'd line up when you're finished, you put your knives and forks together, and, you know, that's how you know that you're finished. You know, your table manners. It was just, it was just different. Like, and I found it hard to fit into all them rules.
Yeah.
You know, sit up straight or do this, or, you know, it was just, I don't know, it was just different. And yeah, I found it hard to, and so did Kizzy, to fit into all of that.
Yeah. And you talk about the rules in the house, and then you're becoming a teenager and kind of pushing back against the rules. Mm-hmm. How was that period of your life then? What was happening?
I think I was trying to, like, figure out who I was as a person, that identity crisis, definitely. And I think, you know, it was hard to follow rules. Like, it was hard because I think deep down in your heart, you feel like everyone's against you. You feel so hurt inside, and you feel emotions in different parts of your body that you don't even know how to understand. You don't know what's happening. And you just feel, like, misunderstood. And I remember, like, when people are telling, do this, do that, and my mum would say to me, like, oh, you've no respect for us, or you've no this, or you're just going to do what you want anyway, and you're this, you're that. And, like, sometimes I really did feel that she was too hard in that way, because I'd be thinking, like, I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to be a bad child. But it was like I was impulsive, and I just did these things and not realise sometimes I was doing it. And she'd be giving out to me, sort of saying, like, you know, oh, you knew what you were doing, blah, 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 blah. But I actually, looking back, I don't know if I did all the time know what I was doing.
And school was tough around this time as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, like, school was really hard because I had learning difficulties, and so reading, writing, all of that, and I was really, really struggling. So when I was in, like, I think, just say, like, early years, say, like, back then, I'd say Kinder A, Kinder B, I think it was called, back in the 80s. I really struggled in school, and me and Kizzy were both in the same class. And I was an embarrassment to kids because I stood out like a sore thumb. And, like, I was constantly trying to be the mother, like, or the big sister, trying to look out for her. But if anything, she was going through her own struggles, you know, and she was like, just sit down, will you? Just stop. But I'd say I definitely had ADHD. I couldn't sit straight, I couldn't sit down. And it was very frustrating for the teachers at the time, I suppose, and they didn't know how to deal with me. And then it was decided that me and Kizzy would go to a different school, or that I would go on to St. Declan's in Northumberland Road. That school was designed for, like, children with learning difficulties and special needs. So I ended up going to that school. Now, I was only supposed to get 2 years, I think, and I ended up getting 4 because I really, really needed it. That school was kind of designed for people with learning difficulties. And there was talk that I was dyslexic. And I was given, you know, extra classes, and I met other children the same, you know, and it was really good. It was a great start. I was never diagnosed with dyslexia. I was never diagnosed with anything. That's one thing that has kind of haunted me today, because as you'll see in the book, I was labelled a lot. So they would have done a lot of assessments, like social workers would have came into the house every now and again and they do assessments. I was going to getting psychology reports, loads of different things. And, you know, I was all labelled low IQ, very low concentration span. But they always said I was trying, and I tried really hard, you know, and I obviously wanted the help. But I was never actually diagnosed with anything. And I think now as an adult, I'm probably going to look into that to get assessed actually now. But yeah, I think that's really affected my confidence, definitely. Especially as an adult, as a mother, like trying to do your child's homework and stuff like that. That was very, very difficult for me. So I had to go and get a lot of help with that.
At one point when you were a bit older, you decided under the Freedom of Information Act to get your files.
Yeah.
What prompted you to seek out that information, and what was it like to get it?
I think you just want to know who you are, and you want to know, because you hear a lot over the grapevine, you know, you hear a lot and you don't know what's true and what's being said, and, you know, and you just want to know. You know, I wanted to know my family background, you know, wanted to know, you know, I would have heard stuff. My birth father would tell me loads of stuff over the years, you know, and you don't know, you're only hearing one side of it.
Yeah.
You know, and I wanted to be my own judge and make my own mind up. But also, I wanted to know actually who was born first. We didn't know. Kizzy always said that she was sick of listening to me, so she kicked me out of my mum's womb. So yeah, that was a big thing, and I wanted to know, like, I think we were 3.5 pounds. Think that was correct.
Yeah.
So all of those,
tiny.
like, yeah, I was dying to know, like, all that kind of information. But actually, when you're applying for your birth files, you have to apply for your medical files separate. So that's separate. So you apply through the Freedom of Information through an email, and then I rang someone and had a chat, and she told me, like, obviously what to do. But yeah, you apply for, I think, for the hospital, I think it was, for the medical files. So it's actually completely different. But yeah, I was mad getting them. Like, I was waiting, I was like a child waiting for them. I think it was 3 to 6 months. I can't really remember now. But when they came, like, it was just, but I remember kind of standing back and going, oh my God, like, you know, and that worry of, oh God, you know, do you really, you know, because you just don't know what you're going to read. But when I opened it up, there was like 4 big files, and it was like surreal, like, that's my life, you know. And I remember like reading through it, and, you know, it was a tough read. It was hard. And I think you need to be in a good place emotionally to read them. You know, I think we probably, like, you know, a lot of people, you think, oh, I just need to know, this is my story. But I really do feel you need to be in a good place. You need to have good support around you, because it triggers you, it sets you back. And there's stuff that you don't need to know.
Do you think it was worthwhile getting them? Were you kind of on balance glad you got them?
Yeah, I am glad I did, to be honest. But I'll tell you something really interesting. So basically I was about 9, I'd say, and I was in this special needs school, and I met another girl there, and she was in Madonna House Children's Home where Gary was, and she invited me to her house. She was having a party, and I went to her house. So we went into the children's home anyway, and we were walking around, and there was just something, I don't know what it was, but I started getting like this feeling, like a deja vu. I've been here before. I know I've been here. And just the narrow corridors, and I remember like they were like kind of like they were like little like porta cabins. They were kind of like, and the narrow corridors, and I remember being in her one, and when I walked in, I remember like turning to the left, and there was like this small room, and it was like I was just getting this sense, I've been here. I just knew I had been there. And this like really high anxiety and smells and feelings. So my foster mum collected me that evening, and I said to her, Mum, I was there before, I know I was. And she was like, don't be so ridiculous, you couldn't have been there. I was like, Mum, I'm telling you, I was there, I know I was. Deep down I knew. She was like, but you never went to visit Gary there or anything like that. I said, I know, but I just have this strange feeling. There's something about the place. So when I read my birth files, there you go. Yeah, I was there. And I may have been there twice.
Wow.
Because there's 2 references to being there with the nuns. And there recently I researched it, and it was the Sacred Nuns that ran it back then.
Yeah. And you would have been a very small infant when you were there, is that right?
Yeah, I would have, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just amazing, isn't it, what you can remember. And my foster mum was absolutely like, wow, she couldn't believe it. But then she also felt a bit sad. Like, she was like, it's sad that she didn't know that. Like, she felt like she should have been told stuff like that. I do think I was very lucky, like, with the foster parents that I had, and my foster mother, like, she was very, like, she was very easy to talk to. She was good, kind-hearted. I knew I could go and talk to her, like, if I needed to. And my dad as well, like, they were really nice people. So, and I do think, like, that's what you need. It's that security. You need to feel safe. You need to feel like you have somebody to talk to, and you feel like the whole world is against you. So I think it's really important that your foster parents, they're stable, and they do keep reassuring you, because you like, a lot of social workers would have came in and out of our house, and I remember they used to sit there back in the 80s, 90s. They used to wear suits, so they'd come in like with their suits, and they were like proper authority figures.
Yeah. So
when they came in, like, there was that fear. And like, when you think back, like, they're cleaning the house. One would have the house spotless, and you're sitting there, and, it's going to be on your best behaviour kind of thing. Not that, I don't ever remember Mum saying that, but I think there's just that feeling, isn't there? Social workers coming, high end, like, authority figures. But they used to sit there and they would write notes. They'd take notes. So it was very, like, formal, like you're being interviewed.
Yeah, kind of clinical.
Yeah, very, very clinical.
Yeah. And even if you weren't told to be on your best behaviour, you're saying that was the atmosphere.
Yeah. But there's always that fear that you could be moved.
Right.
There's that authority figure, you want to be on your best behaviour too, because there's that fear of being moved. And I know, like, I think one thing, Niamh, in the book that I was trying to say is long-term fostering is very, very different to adoption. And a lot of people think that, sure, look, you're with your mum and dad till you're 18, or a long-term placement. They think it's very secure, and they think, like, that's great, isn't it, now you're with your parents, your foster parents. But no, like, there's always that fear of being moved. So a long-term placement, you still, mum and dad weren't able to sign say school documents. They weren't able to, obviously it took a while for me even to get the eye operation, because they had to track down my dad to sign the papers. And they had to get permission, or they'd contact my birth mother, so it was very much rules, like, we weren't allowed to have sleepovers. Who are they? They're going to a friend's house. So there was a lot of that went on. And so, like, me and kids, like, we didn't feel secure. We were always of fear of, like, what if we get moved? I'd say to mum and dad, like, how long can we stay here for? Like, and they'd always, like, be told, you can stay here, for as long as you need. And I know Kizzy was very anxious. Like, Kizzy would be saying, like, will we get to stay here forever? And, like, mum would be like, yeah, hopefully, yeah, of course, But she never really knew. And I think because of what happened to Gorey, I think that really left that fear. My mum didn't trust social workers, because she was always scared that we would be moved. And I think she had that anxiety too, my mum. Like, she probably didn't want to always, be very, like, she just was afraid to keep promises. My mum would be very, like, tell people the truth. Where, like, she was afraid, like, she'd be like, oh yeah, you could stay here forever. And then, she'd break her promise. So we always had that fear. What if we get moved?
Yeah, that little bit of uncertainty that adoption kind of does away with. So in the book, there's a number of turning points.
Oh yeah, lots of them.
Lots of them. What ones come to your mind now as the most important for you?
I think the self-harming, definitely.
Yeah.
Because that was a big part of my life. I started self-harming at the age of 12.
Yeah.
I remember getting, it was just too much. I wasn't offered any counselling. And after meeting my birth mum, and then I had a row with a boyfriend, at the time, and I remember coming home and I ran into the kitchen and, you know, all the knives, the breadboard knives, and I picked up a small knife, and my dad came in at the same time, a faster dad, and I was like, oh, sugar. So I put the knife behind my back, and my dad thought like I think I had cut myself. I obviously came home and I had sliced myself in the kitchen, and I put my hand behind my back as my dad came in, and I remember my dad thinking that I stole biscuits from the jar or something. Oh God. And he's like, what? Behind your back, you know, and kind of tickling me like to see, and I never forget his face when he actually realised it was a knife and that I had cut myself.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember like the shock, and he was just, oh my God, you know. But yeah, look, I struggled with that for a long time, and I didn't really get the supports back then. I just still didn't get counselling up to the age of 18, and that's one thing that really does stay with me, because there were so many meetings, so many like social worker meetings. When I look back in my birth file, oh my God, you should see the amount of meetings that were had, social worker meetings, school meetings, professional meetings. Oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I never got anything. And I'm not joking, I never got counselling. I never received anything. It was all on a tick box base. Never got anything until I was an adult. So I guess the turning point was when Gary died, when my brother took his own life. Gary had actually gone through so much in his life, and my mum kept telling him, keep diaries, write it all down. And one day, Gary decided to take a case against the HSE. So you can't, you know, obviously he couldn't sue his social worker or anything like that, so he had to sue the HSE. He was granted about €80,000, I think. But, you know, he'd gone into drugs, gone into everything, and he lost the fight in himself. So he won his case, but he died about maybe 2-3 months after that. He took his own life. So that was my turning point. I think that was when I had to survive. I had to do whatever I had to do, because I had 2 small children, and I had to get the help. I had to trust.
Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that about Gary. I read it in the book as well, and he's a huge part of your story.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
This book is dedicated to Gary, so.
Yeah. How did you find that help?
I remember when Gary died, I found myself going into a church, and I was sitting in the church and had 2 small kids with me. And I remember like some lady obviously came up and asked me, was I okay? And she had mentioned to me about getting support and getting help. But she actually found it hard to find me anything. But eventually I went to counselling, and I found that was really, really good. It only kind of just opened up. We just really talked about like Gary and about, because when somebody dies from suicide, it leaves a lot of unanswered questions. And it also triggers back your childhood, everything. We kind of dealt with that, but I realised when I went to counselling, you know, I had a lot of different things that I needed to talk to. So I went on, got more counselling in different areas in my life. When I moved down to Gorey, then when I went into the Gorey Youth Needs Centre, they were fantastic. They support a lot of youths out there, and they do like new to Gorey groups. There's so much that they do. But they like just took me under their wing, and they said, right, we'll get you onto courses, we'll do this. And so they signed me up for childcare courses and stuff like that. Yeah, so...
That was the start of you becoming an SNA eventually?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. It sounds like meeting Mossy was another turning point.
Oh, yeah. Oh, poor old Mossy. Sorry, now leaving you out, Ma. Absolutely. He was a huge, huge part. So, like, I met him through friends of mine, like, in Rat Mines. He was up in Bolton Street, I think, in college. And... he was a bit older than me, so I was 18, and he was like 6 years older than me. And I remember him saying to me, you don't look 18, you look 16. And I remember saying to my friend, oh, I don't like him.
Yeah, because we want to be older at that age,
yeah,
not younger.
Absolutely. Like, you know, there's me trying, because they were all a bit older, so I was trying to like fit in and be like them. Yeah, we just became like really good friends. So really, like, he was just kind of like a big brother kind of figure. Like, he was just so kind, so caring. And I don't think I'd ever really like had anyone like that, you know. And then I remember like when we actually did kiss, like I remember going to my foster mum. I was like, oh my God, I don't know. I've got to kiss him and I don't know. It's like kissing your brother. And I remember my foster mum was laughing because she was like, what? She's like, what do you mean by that? Like, you know, she's like, will you stop? He has a really, really big heart. You'll fall in love with him. Just give it a chance. But I remember saying, yeah, but there's no drama. You know, I'm so used to like drama or like problems and all that. He's just too nice. And I remember saying that to one of the girls in work as well, and she was just like, oh, you know. But then we just ended up going on a few dates, and I just fell in love with him actually. Like Mum was right, he just had this massive heart. Actually, his mother had a huge heart like that too, just so kind, so caring, nothing she wouldn't do for anyone, same with him. And it was just weird. All of a sudden, it was just like I just fell in love with him. Yeah, it was, you know, so it wasn't like kissing my brother anymore.
And you've been married to him since you were
23, 24. So I got pregnant very quickly on Faye.
Yeah.
She absolutely saved my life. And he was an amazing dad. And then we went on then had a second baby pretty quick as well. And then Ryan he was a good few years before I had him after Gary died, so that was a good few years after, but which was nice because we just had the two, like, and then we got married.
Yeah. And you've been married ever since, obviously.
Yeah, and he's my absolute rock, you know. He's so supportive with the book, with everything. He's just been amazing. Like, I couldn't have done it without him. You know, really, really. And like, do you know what? He's Kizzy's rock. He's there for Kizzy, like, as he says, like, when I married you, I married the two of you. You know, and he really did, because he would do it. And, you know, and he's going up to my foster parents now on Saturday to fix light switches, and, you know, he paints, he does whatever they need. Like, my foster parents love him. He's an absolute, they're just like, he's like having a son. You know, he's amazing. And he was very good to Gary too. You know, him and Gary were really close as well.
Yeah.
You know, so he was a calming effect to all of us, like, you know. So very, very, very lucky.
It's really nice to hear that.
Yeah.
The book is full of other stories as well. Like I feel like we've only tipped into it in a way, talking here. I really recommend the book to everyone, The Hidden World of a Foster Girl. And before we wrap up, we'll say a bit about where you can get it. But just to ask you, as we come to the end, you have fostered yourself as well. Yeah. You've seen the system from inside the schools as an SNA. Sadie, what would you say to people who are thinking of fostering, or maybe people who are already fostering but are at those crossroads that foster carers can come to, where they're deciding whether to continue fostering or not?
Yeah.
Would you have anything to say to those people?
I suppose I just want to say, like, obviously, I'm here today to talk about my book, obviously, Hidden World of a Foster Girl, but I'm independent, so I'm not with any, like, agency or anything like that, so I'm just off my back, I suppose, for, you know, that question. I suppose it's one of the most amazing things you can do, I think, is to take a child in and, you know, give them all the love that you can and give them that safe place and be that security. So yeah, I think if you're in a position you can do it, it's amazing. But it is very, very hard. You know, it's not easy, and it's emotional, and it's a roller coaster. You know, and you do need a lot of time. And I think, you know, you can only make that decision yourself at the end of the day, but it is a really nice thing to do. That's obviously why I did it, to give something back. But I did, like, it is hard, I think, because I do feel the system needs to change, you know, and I think that we need to work together. You know, foster parents need to feel heard. Social workers and foster parents should work together a lot more closely. And I think listen to the foster parents, listen to the children. I just think there just needs to be a lot more, maybe analysing the system, people in the professionals talking about the system, making changes together, talk to, you know, the adults that have come out of foster care, talk to children, talk to professionals, TASHA specialists. Everyone work together to make it a lot stronger. I think that would be the best thing to do, and best of luck to anyone that is thinking of fostering, because it is fantastic. It is an amazing thing you can do.
Yeah.
But just make sure you look after yourself as well and your family.
That's so
take
important.
time out for yourself.
Yeah. Sadie, thank you so much for coming in and telling your story, part of your story, because as I said, there's much more of it in the book as well.
Yeah.
It's so honest, it's so thoughtful, and it's so illuminating. And one of the really beautiful things about the book is that your poems are threaded through it as well. So I wonder if it would be okay for us to read one of your poems to finish up today, if that would be all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
So you've asked me to read it,
Yeah.
which I'm very happy to do. And the one we've selected is Reborn. Is there anything you want to say about that one?
Yeah, I think that was in like a period of when I, started writing and just getting everything off my chest. And I suppose the power of writing, wow, it's so strong. Where I feel when it all started unraveling and writing it, I just started to feel reborn. I started to feel different and, looking at the world in a different light. You notice, oh, the trees are green. God, there's a milk bottle over there, I didn't see that. Or the sky looks bluer today. Just attention to detail, where when you're in your head, you don't actually see it. So I started to kind of blossom, spring out of myself.
Well, it's a really beautiful poem.
Thank you.
And I'll read it now. It's called Reborn by Sadie Harpur. Pen to paper as the words so beautiful flow. The genie's bottle's lid suddenly pops open. Something releases into the cold air. Black smoke clouds the sky. Colour lightens in the night spin. Energy swirling, whirling, forcefully changing, bursting into beautiful splashes of light. Freedom, dancing, rejoicing, taking back what's rightly yours. Replacement of something lost. No more to lose, only to gain. Thank you, Sadie.
Thank you, Niamh, for having me.
The Hidden World of a Foster Girl by Sadie Harpur with Jackie Hayden is available in local bookshops in Maynooth, in Wexford town, in Gorey, in Enniscorthy and Rosslare. In Dublin, you can get it in Books Upstairs in Dublin too. You can also order it online from their website and have it posted anywhere in the world, and from Hampton's bookshop in Donnybrook. And you can follow Sadie through her Facebook page, Hidden World of a Foster Girl. Thanks for joining us on Stories from Foster Care. We'll see you next time.